My name is Brooke Whitman. I'm 35 years old. At 7:40 in the evening on the third Saturday in June, I sat across from my husband at our anniversary dinner while his ex-girlfriend laughed with one hand resting on the stem of my champagne glass. Not her glass, mine. The restaurant was called Marlowe's, a quiet place in downtown Charleston with old brick walls, low amber lamps, white tablecloths, and a pianist near the bar, playing something soft enough to be mistaken for memory. The air smelled like butter, seared scallops, and gardenias from the arrangement at the hostess stand. Rain had started just after we arrived, and water ran down the tall windows behind our table like thin silver threads. It was supposed to be our 7th wedding anniversary. 2 place settings had been arranged when I arrived. 2 menus. 2 candles. 2 flutes of champagne already poured because my husband, Grant, had told me he wanted the night to feel intentional. Then 23 minutes later, his ex, Celeste Mercer, walked through the front door wearing a black silk dress, red lipstick, and the exact expression of a woman who knew she had been expected. Grant stood too quickly. "Celeste," he said, like he was surprised. She smiled at him first. Then at me. "Oh, Brooke," she said, "I hope this isn't awkward." The pianist missed one note. Or maybe I only remember it that way. Grant pulled out the chair beside him. "She was downtown," he said. "She just stopped by to say congratulations." Stopped by, at a reservation-only restaurant, on our anniversary, in a dress that matched the room. I looked at my husband's hand on the back of her chair. His wedding ring tapped once against the wood. Celeste sat down slowly, crossing one leg over the other, and lifted my champagne flute by mistake. Or not by mistake. Then she said, 7 years. That's impressive, considering how complicated everything was in the beginning." The silence at the table lasted 6 seconds. Grant laughed softly. "Celeste," he said, warning her without sounding like he was warning her. I did not cry. I did not raise my voice. I did not throw wine. I did not ask why the woman who had once told me she would always understand Grant better than I did was now seated at my anniversary dinner with my husband smiling like the damage was decorative. I simply picked up my water glass and watched the candlelight tremble through it. What they didn't know was that 3 days earlier I had found the hidden text thread Grant thought he had deleted, the hotel receipt he had charged to a card I never checked, and a calendar invite from Celeste labeled only Thursday lunch, repeated every second week for 11 months. They also did not know that while Celeste sat at my table touching my champagne, I had already sent one message from the restroom. To her husband. Marlowe's. Private dining room. 7:55. Ask for the Whitman reservation. This is that story. Before I take you back to where it began, tell me where you are watching or listening from, and what time it is there. If you have ever been told you were imagining something, because the truth would inconvenience someone else's performance, I want you to say so in the comments. And if stories about women who were betrayed, underestimated, humiliated, and quietly took their power back mean something to you, like this video and subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. Because sometimes the most powerful guest at the table is the one no one knows you invited. But before I tell you what happened when Celeste's husband walked into that restaurant, I need to take you back to the beginning. I met Grant Whitman when I was 26, in the lobby of a boutique hotel on King Street, during a rainstorm that made the whole city smell like wet brick and magnolia leaves. I was there coordinating a charity auction for the children's literacy nonprofit where I worked as development manager. Grant was there representing his firm, Whitman and Vale, a commercial architecture studio that had donated a design consultation package. He arrived carrying a leather portfolio and wearing a navy suit with rain on the shoulders. He was handsome in a way that seemed unintentional at first. Tall, dark blonde hair, pale blue eyes, and a habit of lowering his voice when he spoke to you, as if everything he said belonged only between the two of you. He helped me move a stack of auction catalogs away from a leaking window. When one of the volunteers panicked because the floral delivery was late, Grant found the driver's number, called him, and redirected him through the service entrance without making anyone feel foolish. That was Grant's gift. He could make competence look like kindness. At 10:30 that night, after the auction ended and the last bidder left with a framed watercolor under one arm, I found Grant in the lobby holding 2 paper cups of coffee. "You look like someone who forgot dinner existed," he said. "I had 3 almonds and half a cracker," I said. He handed me 1 cup. "Then this is practically a banquet." I laughed because I was tired, and because he looked pleased to have made me laugh. We started dating 2 weeks later. Back then, Grant seemed steady. He was 31, established, charming but not loud. He had a small circle of friends, a widowed mother he called every Sunday, and a career he described with enough humility to seem impressive. He listened when I talked about donor strategy and community programs. He came to my events. He remembered the names of children from our literacy campaign. When my old car needed repairs, he drove me to work for 3 days without making it feel like a favor. I had grown up in Columbia, South Carolina, the only daughter of a high school English teacher and a county clerk. My parents loved plainly. They did not perform wealth or affection. My mother wrote thank you notes by hand. My father believed showing up 10 minutes early was a moral position. In our house, apologies were not dramatic, but they were specific. I did not know yet how rare that was. Grant's world was different. The Whitmans were old Charleston without old money, which meant they had the habits of status and the anxiety of maintaining it. His mother, Margaret, lived in a pale yellow house south of Broad, with inherited silver, cracking plaster, and opinions about which families had, quote, held themselves properly. She liked me at first because I was polite, employed, and not flashy. Later I learned that not flashy meant she assumed I would not compete for attention. Grant had dated Celeste Mercer for 4 years before he met me. I knew about her from the beginning, because everyone did. Celeste was the kind of ex who remained in photographs, in stories, in the edges of friend groups, in restaurant memories, in comments like, "Oh, Celeste used to love this place." She came from a family that owned a chain of waterfront restaurants. She was beautiful in a polished, theatrical way, with dark hair, green eyes, and a laugh that waited half a second too long for an audience. Grant told me their relationship ended because they, quote, wanted different things. "What things?" I asked once, early on, while we walked along the Battery after dinner. He shrugged. "Celeste wanted everything to feel like a movie. I wanted peace." I believed him because I wanted to. 3 months into dating Grant, I met Celeste at a birthday party for one of his college friends. The party was held on a rooftop bar, overlooking the harbor. String lights flickered in the wind. Celeste arrived late in a white dress and hugged Grant before she introduced herself to me. "So you're Brooke," she said. "I am." She smiled. Grant has always liked calm women after chaos. It sounded like a compliment until later. Grant laughed and put his hand on my back. "Celeste says things dramatically," he said. She touched his arm, and Grant pretends not to love it. That was the first pattern. The triangle was always introduced as harmless because everyone acted like acknowledging it would make you insecure. Celeste made little comments. Grant laughed them off. I was expected to smile, because mature women did not react to history. Mature women understood. Mature women did not ask why an ex still texted at midnight, or why a private joke from 5 years ago needed to be repeated in front of the new girlfriend. The second pattern appeared during our engagement. Grant proposed after 18 months on the pier at Folly Beach, just after sunrise, with coffee cooling on the bench beside us and pelicans moving low over the water. The ring was simple and beautiful, an oval diamond on a thin gold band. I cried then, privately, into his shoulder, because I believed I was being chosen without qualification. The next day, Celeste sent him a text. He showed it to me voluntarily, which was clever because voluntary disclosure can look like honesty, even when it is only a controlled release. Her message said, "Congratulations, I always knew you'd pick someone safe." Grant rolled his eyes. "She's just being Celeste." I asked, "What does safe mean?" "It means stable, good, the opposite of her." He kissed my forehead. I wanted to be the opposite of her. That was part of the trap. At our engagement party, Celeste wore red. Not bridal white, not anything outrageous enough to be challenged. Just red, sleek and expensive, with earrings that caught every light in the room. She brought a gift, a framed black and white photograph she had taken of Grant years earlier, leaning against a railing downtown, looking young and unguarded. She handed it to me. "You should have this," she said. "It's one of my favorites of him." I held the frame and felt the room watching. Grant said, "That was a good trip." I said, "Thank you." Celeste smiled. "Take care of him. He pretends he doesn't need much, but he does." That night, I put the photograph in a closet. Grant found it 3 weeks later. "You didn't hang it?" It felt strange. He looked disappointed. "It's just a photo, Brooke." "No," I said. "It's a memory she gave me like a test." He sighed. "You're overthinking it." That was the first time he used that phrase, "you're overthinking it." The third pattern came after our wedding. We married in October, in a small garden ceremony behind a historic inn. The weather was perfect. My mother cried softly. My father walked me down the aisle and whispered, "Steady, sweetheart," because he could feel my hand trembling. Grant looked at me with tears in his eyes. Celeste was not invited, but she sent flowers. White roses. No card. Grant said that was gracious. I said nothing. Our first year was mostly happy. Or it looked happy from inside the story I was telling myself. We bought a townhouse in Mount Pleasant, with pale gray siding, a screened porch, and just enough room for a life that still felt open. I became director of partnerships at the nonprofit. Grant became senior associate at his firm. We hosted dinners, we took weekend trips, we learned each other's habits. He left cabinet doors open, I folded receipts into my wallet, he liked music while cooking. I needed silence in the morning. Normal things. The symbolic object in this story is a small silver anniversary bracelet. Grant gave it to me on our first anniversary. It was delicate, with 7 tiny links shaped like knots, though there was only one knot then, and he said we would add one for every year. "A knot for every year we choose each other," he told me. It was sentimental in a way I did not expect from him. I wore it almost every day. By our 3rd anniversary, the bracelet had 3 knots. By our 5th, 5. Each year, he took it to the jeweler and had another link added. The ritual mattered to me. It made marriage feel like something we were building in small, visible increments. Celeste married during our 4th year. Her husband's name was Adrian Mercer, though Mercer was her surname too because she did not change it. He was a financial analyst, quiet, observant, with salt and pepper hair even though he was only 42. I met him at a New Year's party hosted by mutual friends. He stood slightly behind Celeste most of the evening, smiling politely while she told stories. When he spoke, people listened because he did not waste words. At midnight, after everyone toasted, Adrian and I ended up near the balcony while Grant and Celeste laughed by the bar about something from college. Adrian looked at them, then at me. "Does that bother you?" he asked. It was too direct for a party. I said, "Should it?" He gave a small smile without humor. "That's not an answer." I looked at my husband, head tilted toward Celeste, their shoulders almost touching. "I'm told it's history," I said. Adrian nodded. "History can be a country people keep visiting." I remembered that sentence. At the time, I thought it made him melancholy. Later, I understood it made him aware. By our 6th year, my marriage had developed a weather system I could not explain to others without sounding petty. Grant was still kind in public. He still brought flowers sometimes. He still kissed my temple when he left for work. He still called me Brookie when he wanted something to feel easy. But there were absences inside the kindness. He turned his phone face down. He started stepping into the garage for calls. He said work dinners ran late. He became protective of his calendar, but careless with details. He mentioned Celeste more often, and less directly. A friend sent me an article. Someone I know is looking at a renovation. We were all talking about that place downtown. The pronouns blurred. When I asked, he said, "I don't want to walk on eggshells because you're uncomfortable with someone who was in my life before you." That sentence worked for almost a year. Not because it was fair, because it made me afraid of becoming the insecure wife. Insecure wife is a costume women are threatened with when asking reasonable questions would reveal unreasonable behavior, so I became careful instead. I noticed without accusing. I listened without interrupting. I watched dates, names, moods. I did what I had learned in development work. I tracked patterns before making claims. In January of our 7th year, Celeste began appearing more often. First at a gallery opening where Grant insisted he did not know she would be there. She wore emerald green and touched his sleeve while laughing. Adrian was not with her. Then at a charity luncheon where she stopped by our table and said, "I still think Grant should design our Folly Beach project. Adrian wants someone dull." Grant said, "Adrian likes predictable things." Celeste looked at me. "Predictable can be comforting." I smiled. "It can also be reliable," I said. Her eyes sharpened. "Grant told me in the car that I had been cold." "She insulted your husband," he said. "I thought she insulted hers." He gripped the steering wheel. "You always do this." "What?" "Turn everything into a moral inquiry." I looked out the window at the palmettos passing in the dark. "No," I said. "Sometimes I just hear what people say." The next month, on Valentine's Day, Grant said he had a client dinner. I did not object. We had never been precious about holidays, and he promised we would celebrate Saturday. But at 9:10 that night, my friend Mara sent me a photo from a restaurant bar downtown. "Isn't this Grant?" In the photo, my husband stood near a high-top table, holding a drink, smiling down at Celeste. Her hand rested on his forearm. There were other people in the background, but not at their table. I stared at the image until my phone dimmed. When Grant came home at 11:20, he smelled like cedar cologne and wine. "How was the client dinner?" I asked. "Long." "Who was there?" He removed his watch. "The Henderson Group." "Celeste?" His hand paused. "She stopped by. Her family knows them." I watched him place the watch on the dresser. "You didn't mention that." "Because I knew you'd do this." "Ask who was at dinner." "Interrogate me." I did not show him the photo, not yet. That night, while he slept, I sat downstairs on the sofa with my silver anniversary bracelet in my palm. 6 knots. 6 years of choosing, or thinking I had been chosen. The bracelet felt colder than usual. I did not cry. I opened a note on my phone and wrote, February 14th. Grant said Henderson client dinner. Photo from Mara shows Celeste at bar. Grant said she stopped by. That was the beginning of the record. By March, I had a folder. Not a physical one at first. A digital folder hidden inside a work archive on my laptop, under the bland name Vendor Notes. Inside were screenshots, calendar inconsistencies, receipts I found in jacket pockets, one photo from Mara, and notes written immediately after conversations so I would not be convinced later that I had imagined tone, dates, or words. On March 11th, Grant told me he was playing golf with a client on Kiowa. His golf club stayed in the garage. On March 19th, he said he had a late meeting at the office. The parking app showed his car had been downtown near the Dewberry Hotel from 6:10 to 9:42 because the charge appeared on our shared transit account. On April 2nd, Celeste posted a photo of a hotel lobby fireplace. No people, just the fire, a cocktail, and the caption, "Some conversations deserve better lighting." Grant came home 40 minutes after the post. On April 17th, I found a folded receipt in the pocket of his gray blazer from a wine bar called Juniper. 2 glasses of Sancerre, burrata, roasted olives, chocolate torte. Timestamp, 8:56. He had told me he was at the office until 10. I photographed it and put it back. Still, receipts were not enough. A person determined to deny can turn any single fact into misunderstanding. I needed the shape of the thing. The hidden thread came by accident, though I no longer believe accidents arrive empty-handed. It was the first Tuesday in June, 12 days before our anniversary. Grant was in the shower. His phone buzzed on the bathroom counter while I was brushing my teeth. I glanced down without intending to read. The notification preview showed no name. Just a gray icon and the words. I still remember the room number. My hand froze. The thread disappeared from the lock screen before I touched anything. Grant had set messages to hide previews, but that one came through from an encrypted app I did not recognize. I looked at the shower door. Water ran steadily. Steam clouded the mirror. I did not pick up the phone. That matters. I wanted to. Every part of me wanted to. But I had learned enough to know that if I crossed a line in panic, Grant would make my method the issue and bury the behavior beneath it. So I waited. That night, I checked our home office computer because Grant sometimes synced documents there. I did not break into anything. The machine was ours. The browser was open. His email was logged in because he always forgot to sign out. At 9:40, while he watched a game downstairs, I searched his email for the hotel name from the parking receipt. The Dewberry. Nothing. Then I searched Celeste. Too obvious. Nothing recent. Then Juniper. One result. A calendar invitation forwarded from Grant's work account to his personal account, then deleted, but still visible in trash. Thursday lunch. No attendee names in the subject, but the location notes contained J. It repeated every other Thursday at 12:30. It had started 11 months earlier. I searched for Thursday lunch. Multiple deleted calendar entries. Then I searched room number. That was when the first hotel receipt appeared. Not an email. In a cloud storage folder automatically saving scanned receipts from his expense app. He had photographed it, likely intending to submit something and then deciding not to. The receipt was from the Dewberry, room 614, one night. Paid with an individual card ending in 8821. Not our joint card. A card I did not know existed. Guest name: Grant Whitman. Date: March 19th. The night of the late meeting. I sat very still. My first emotion was not rage. It was embarrassment. That is the strange cruelty of betrayal. Someone else behaves shamefully, and for one moment the shame lands on you, because you realize how long you were standing in a room you did not understand. I downloaded the receipt. Then I searched the card ending in 8821. That led me to a buried email folder labeled Project Travel. Inside were statements from a credit card in Grant's name only. I do not know why he kept them there. Carelessness, maybe. Arrogance, probably. The card had charges I recognize now. Juniper, Marlowe's deposit, the Dewberry, florist orders, ride shares, boutique hotel bars. And there was one charge that made my stomach turn. Marlowe's private dining deposit. June anniversary dinner. Table for 4. Not 2. 4. I sat at the desk with my hands folded in my lap. Downstairs, the crowd on the television cheered. Grant laughed at something. 4. He had not accidentally allowed Celeste to stop by. He had reserved space for her. That night, I did not confront him. I slept beside him with my eyes open until 2 in the morning, listening to the ceiling fan turn. At 3:15, I got up, went downstairs, and made tea. The kitchen smelled like mint and old wood. Rain tapped lightly against the screened porch. I wrote everything down. At 7:30 the next morning, I called my friend Mara. Mara was an attorney, though not a divorce lawyer. She handled employment disputes and had the calm, dry voice of someone who had watched people lie badly under oath. We had been friends since graduate school. She knew my marriage, but not all of it, because I had protected Grant out of habit. I told her enough. She listened without interrupting. Then she said, "Do not confront him without copies." "I have copies." "Make more." I did. "Good." "Do you want a divorce attorney?" I looked at my silver bracelet on the kitchen table. "I don't know." "That's honest." "I want the truth first." Mara was quiet for a moment. "Brooke, truth from him or truth from the situation?" That question stayed with me. The truth from Grant would be managed. The truth from the situation was already printing itself in dates, receipts, charges, and repeated lunches. Mara said, "If there is another spouse involved, be careful. Do not send accusations, send facts if you decide to contact him, and do it in writing." Another spouse, Adrian. I remembered New Year's Eve. History can be a country people keep visiting. I found Adrian's email through a nonprofit gala donor list from years earlier. I did not use it right away. For 2 days, I simply drafted and deleted messages. On Thursday, June 8th, Grant came home cheerful. "Anniversary dinner is set," he said. "At Marlowe's." He paused only a fraction. Yes, 7:30. Private room? His eyes moved to mine. Semi-private. I thought it would feel special. For two? He smiled. Unless you're bringing a date. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I smiled back. No, I said. Just us. He kissed my forehead. You'll love it. That was the moment something inside me became very quiet. Not numb, not dead. Quiet like a courtroom before the judge enters. By the following Monday, I had met with a divorce attorney named Elaine Porter in an office overlooking Meeting Street. She had short gray hair, black glasses, and no decorative warmth. I liked her immediately. I brought printed documents in a navy folder. Hotel receipt, calendar entries, credit card statements, restaurant deposit, screenshots, notes, and the Valentine's photo from Mara. Elaine reviewed everything in silence. The only sound was the turning of pages. Finally, she said, South Carolina allows fault-based divorce on adultery, but proving it has specific legal standards. These documents are useful, though I'd advise caution before assuming what they establish legally. I understand. Do you share children? No. Joint property? The townhouse, retirement accounts, some investments. Any prenuptial agreement? No. She nodded. What do you want right now? I looked at the Navy folder. I want to stop being told I'm overthinking what he is doing in plain sight. Elaine's face softened slightly. That is not a legal answer, but it is an important one. She advised me not to move out immediately, not to drain accounts, not to confront him in a way that could become volatile, and not to publicly accuse Celeste without proof I was prepared to stand behind. I'm not interested in public drama, I said. Good, Elaine replied, but public truth is sometimes different from public drama. I wrote that down. Public truth is different from public drama. 2 days before our anniversary dinner, I emailed Adrian. Subject line, information you may need. Adrian, this is Brooke Whitman. I'm sorry to contact you this way. I have reason to believe Grant and Celeste have been meeting privately for some time. I am not asking you to believe me based on emotion, and I am not asking you to respond if you do not want to. I am attaching several documents with dates, locations, and receipts. I believe you deserve the opportunity to know before Saturday evening. Grant has made a reservation at Marlowe's for our anniversary dinner. The deposit appears to be for 4 people, though I was told it was for 2. If Celeste plans to attend, I suspect you were not told. I am sorry. I attached only 3 documents: the Marlowe's deposit, the recurring Thursday calendar screenshot, and the Dewberry receipt with Grant's name. Not everything. Enough. Then I sent it. Adrian replied at 6:20 that evening. Thank you. I would like to speak by phone if you are willing. We spoke at 7. His voice was controlled, but I could hear something breaking beneath it. I knew about some lunches, he said, not the hotel. I'm sorry. She told me Grant was helping with a design contact. He may have been, I said, because I would not exaggerate beyond the record. Adrian was quiet. Then he said Celeste told me Saturday she has a charity dinner with her mother. I closed my eyes. Grant told me it was our anniversary dinner. Another silence. He exhaled once slowly. Do you want me there? That question was not simple. Want is a dangerous word in betrayal. I wanted my marriage to have been honest. I wanted the last year back. I wanted Celeste's hand off my life. I wanted Grant to tell the truth without being cornered. I wanted dignity. I want the truth in the room, I said. Adrian understood. We agreed he would not come unless Celeste appeared. I would text him one sentence. She is here. Then he would come to Marlowe's and ask for the Whitman reservation. No threats, no shouting, no scene beyond the one Grant and Celeste had already staged. On the morning of our anniversary, Grant gave me the bracelet. The 7th knot had been added. He placed the box on the kitchen table while sunlight moved across the floor. Happy anniversary, Brookie, he said. My throat tightened, not with tenderness, with grief. I opened the box. The bracelet lay against white velvet, 7 tiny silver knots, shining, as if they had not been attached to years now tangled with lies. It's beautiful, I said. He looked relieved. You'll wear it tonight? I touched the bracelet. Yes. At 6:30 I dressed for dinner. I chose a navy silk dress, pearl earrings, and low heels. I fastened the anniversary bracelet around my wrist. The clasp clicked softly. In the mirror, I looked calm. That almost offended me. I wanted my outside to show the wreckage inside, but I had spent years learning composure, and composure came when called. Grant wore a charcoal suit and the tie I bought him for his promotion. He looked handsome. That hurt too. Betrayal does not always arrive looking monstrous. Sometimes it adjusts its cufflinks in your bedroom mirror and says, "Ready?" In the car, he reached for my hand. I let him take it. 7 years, he said. Yes. Are you happy? I turned to him. The city lights moved across his face. What do you mean? He shrugged. With us. There was a strange softness in his voice, and for one dangerous second, I wondered if he might confess. If he might pull over, tell me he had been foolish, lost, selfish, scared. If he might hand me the truth before I had to bring witnesses. But then he added, "You've seemed tense lately." Tense, not betrayed, not suspicious for good reason. Tense. I looked out the window. I've been paying attention. He laughed lightly. That sounds ominous. It isn't. It was. Marlowe's had our table ready when we arrived at 7:28. The hostess, a young woman with a sleek bun and a black dress, led us through the main dining room to a semi-private alcove with a curved banquette, 2 chairs, and a view of the rain-streaked window. There were 4 place settings. I looked at them. Grant said quickly, "They must have misunderstood." The hostess said, "Your reservation was confirmed for 4, Mr. Whitman." Grant's jaw tightened. I smiled at her. "Thank you." She left. Grant picked up a menu. "I told them to," he said. "No, you didn't." His eyes lifted. "What?" I opened my menu. I said, "No, you didn't." The candle between us flickered. He leaned forward. "Brooke, not tonight." That's what I thought. His mouth closed. The server brought champagne. 4 flutes. Grant told him 2 were enough. The server looked confused but removed the extra glasses. At 7:40, Celeste arrived. She did not walk in like someone stopping by. She walked in like a woman hitting her mark. Black silk dress. Red lipstick. Diamond studs. Hair swept over one shoulder. She carried a small gold clutch and wore a perfume I recognized from old parties. Jasmine, and something sharper underneath. Grant stood. That was the part one watched most carefully. Not Celeste. Grant. He stood automatically, too quickly, like his body had been waiting. "Celeste," he said. She smiled. "I was just nearby." I looked at her shoes. Dry, no rain on them. She had come by car service or parked under cover. Planned. She turned to me. "Oh, Brooke. I hope this isn't awkward." There are sentences designed to create the thing they pretend to regret. I smiled. Why would it be? Her eyes shifted. Just slightly. Grant pulled out the chair beside him. "She was downtown," he said. "She just stopped by to say congratulations." I looked at the empty 4th place setting the staff had not yet removed from the banquet side. How thoughtful. Celeste sat. She lifted my champagne by mistake. I let her. Grant looked at me, probably expecting a reaction he could name. I gave him none. Celeste raised the flute. "To 7 years," she said. "That's impressive, considering how complicated everything was in the beginning." The silence sat down with us like a 4th guest. Grant laughed softly. "Celeste." She smiled. "What? I'm being supportive." I excused myself at 7:47. In the restroom, the lighting was too bright. White marble counters. A vase of lilies. A woman in a green dress reapplying lipstick at the mirror. I entered a stall, closed the door, and took out my phone. My hands were steady. I texted Adrian. "She is here." Then, "Marlowe's, private dining room, 7:55. Ask for the Whitman reservation," he replied. "On my way." I stood there for one breath, then another. I looked down at the silver bracelet on my wrist. 7 knots. 7 years. I touched the newest link with my thumb. It was smooth, perfect, and meaningless, if I allowed it to purchase my silence. When I returned, Celeste was telling a story about a trip she and Grant had taken before I knew him. He hated the hotel, she said, laughing, but he loved the balcony. Grant smiled into his drink. I sat down. What hotel? I asked. Grant's smile faded. Celeste blinked, then recovered. Oh, years ago, Savannah. Room number? I asked. Grant said, Brooke. Celeste laughed. Who remembers room numbers? I looked at her. You do. The table went still. The server approached, sensed something, and quietly retreated. Grant leaned toward me. What are you doing? Having dinner. No, he said under his breath. You're making a scene. I glanced around the alcove. A couple 2 tables away was speaking softly over pasta. The pianist played on. Rain tapped the glass. No one was looking yet. Not yet, I said. Celeste set down the champagne flute. I should probably go, she said, but she did not stand. Grant touched her wrist. Stay, he said. That one word broke something cleanly. Stay. On our anniversary, at my table, with my champagne in front of her. I looked at his hand on her wrist. Then I looked at him. Grant, I said calmly. Why was the reservation made for 4? He removed his hand. It was a restaurant error. I opened my small clutch and took out the printed reservation confirmation. I unfolded it once and placed it beside the candle. Party size, 4. Confirmed by Grant Whitman. Celeste inhaled. Grant looked at the paper, then at me. You printed the reservation? Yes. His voice hardened. You went through my email? No, you forwarded it to our shared household calendar, then deleted it, but not well. Celeste said, This is inappropriate. I turned to her. No, Celeste, this is our anniversary dinner. Your presence is inappropriate. The paper is just accurate. Her face flushed. Grant whispered, Stop. I did not. At 7:56, Adrian walked into Marlowe's. He was wearing a dark overcoat, rain on his shoulders, and the expression of a man who had spent the ride over deciding not to become loud. The hostess pointed toward our alcove. He thanked her. Then he walked toward us with measured steps. Celeste saw him first. Her face changed in a way I will never forget. It did not become afraid immediately. It became offended, as if reality had arrived without permission. Adrian, she said. Grant turned. Adrian looked at his wife, then at my husband, then at me. Good evening, he said. No one answered. I gestured toward the empty 4th place setting. Your seat is ready. The couple 2 tables away stopped talking. The pianist continued, softer now. Adrian removed his coat and placed it over the back of the chair. He sat down beside me, across from Celeste. Celeste's voice was low. What are you doing here? He looked at her. I could ask the same question. Grant said, Adrian, this is not what it looks like. Adrian nodded slowly. Then let's discuss what it is. That was the public payoff beginning, not with shouting, but with a chair being occupied. Grant laughed once, nervously. Brooke misunderstood. Celeste stopped by. Adrian looked at me. I opened the navy envelope I had brought in my clutch, not all the documents, just enough for the room. First, I placed the Marlowe's reservation confirmation on the table. 4 people, I said. Then the credit card deposit. Paid 2 weeks ago. Then the calendar screenshot. Thursday lunch, every 2nd week, 11 months. Then the Dewberry receipt. Room 614, March 19th. The night Grant told me he was at the office. Celeste whispered, Brooke. I did not look at her. Adrian picked up the hotel receipt. He did not rush. He read the top, the date, the room number, the card. His face did not move, but his hand tightened at the edge of the paper. Grant said, That was for a client who came in from out of town. I turned to him. Name the client. He stared at me. The silence lasted 8 seconds. I said, Name the client, Grant. Celeste reached for her clutch. I'm leaving. Adrian did not raise his voice. Sit down, Celeste. She froze. It was not a command barked in anger. It was worse. It was a request spoken by someone whose patience had expired. She sat. Grant looked around now. The server stood near the wine station, pretending to arrange glasses. The couple nearby had gone still. In the mirror behind the bar, I could see two women watching. Public truth is different from public drama. I kept my voice even. Celeste, did you tell Adrian you were attending our anniversary dinner tonight? She looked at me as if I had slapped her. That is none of your business. Adrian said, it is mine. She turned to him. I was going to tell you. When? She said nothing. Grant jumped in. This has gotten out of control. I looked at him. No, it has gotten documented. His face darkened. You've been spying on me. I've been believing what I saw. The server approached cautiously. Would you like a few minutes? Adrian looked at him. Yes, and water, please. The server nodded and left quickly. Celeste whispered, this is humiliating. I looked at my champagne flute in front of her. Yes. For the first time, she seemed to understand that humiliation had already been at the table before Adrian arrived. She had simply assumed it would belong to me. Adrian placed the Dewberry receipt down. Celeste, were you at that hotel on March 19th? Her lips parted. Grant said, don't answer that. Adrian looked at him. Interesting. Celeste closed her eyes. Adrian, were you there? She looked down at the tablecloth. Yes. The word was so soft the room almost missed it. Grant leaned back as if she had betrayed him by telling one truth too soon. Adrian's face remained composed. With Grant? Celeste did not answer. Adrian looked at my husband. Grant adjusted his cuff. It wasn't what you think. Adrian said, that sentence is rarely followed by clarity. I almost smiled. Almost. Grant said, Celeste was upset. She needed to talk. Brooke and I had been distant. It was complicated. There it was. Complicated. The preferred word of people who want fog around simple betrayals. I removed the final paper from the envelope. It was a screenshot of the encrypted message notification I had written down by hand because I had not opened the phone. Not proof like the rest, but enough to ask. I still remember the room number. I placed my note on the table. Who sent this? Grant stared at it. Celeste's face went pale. Adrian read it, then looked at his wife. Did you? Celeste covered her mouth with one hand. No one spoke for 10 seconds. The pianist stopped playing between songs. The silence opened wide. Then Celeste said, it started before March. Grant said, Celeste. She looked at him, suddenly angry. No, you don't get to let me burn alone. Adrian's jaw tightened. I did not move. Celeste looked at me. You wanted the truth? Fine. It started last summer. Lunches first. Then calls. Then we met at Juniper. Then hotels. Not every time. Not like some cheap affair. I looked at Grant. He did not look back. Celeste continued, voice shaking now. He said you were cold. That you didn't need him. That you cared more about your work and your perfect little moral standards than being his wife. My hand moved to the anniversary bracelet. 7 knots. Grant finally looked at me. Brooke, he said. I waited. He said nothing else. Because there was no version left that made him the reasonable man managing an emotional wife. Adrian placed both hands flat on the table. How long, Celeste? She swallowed. August. Last August? Yes. He looked at the calendar screenshot. 11 months. She whispered, it was not constant. Adrian nodded, as if betrayal requires perfect attendance. The server returned with water and stopped when he saw the table. Adrian thanked him. The server left. Grant leaned forward. Adrian, we should discuss this privately. Adrian looked at him. You had 11 months of private. That sentence settled over the table like a final course no one wanted served. Grant's face flushed. You don't know my marriage? No, Adrian said, but I now know quite a bit about mine. Celeste began crying, quietly at first, then with one hand pressed under her eyes to protect her makeup. I didn't mean for this, she said. I believed that. She did not mean for exposure. That is not the same as regret. Grant reached toward me across the table. Brooke! I looked at his hand. The wedding ring. The fingers that had fastened my anniversary bracelet that morning. The hand that had touched Celeste's wrist and told her to stay. I did not take it. He withdrew. I said. Did you invite her tonight to hurt me or to test what you could get away with? His eyes filled with something like panic. I didn't invite her. I turned the reservation confirmation toward him again. Then, why for? He rubbed both hands over his face. She said she might stop by with Adrian. Adrian gave a short laugh. Celeste whispered, "No, I didn't." Grant looked at her sharply. And there it was, the unraveling. Not from my accusation, but from the two of them realizing their lies had not been coordinated for a room with both spouses present. I sat very still while they contradicted each other. Grant said Celeste wanted closure. Celeste said Grant told her I knew they were still close. Grant said the hotel was one mistake. Celeste said there were 3 hotels. Grant said he planned to tell me. Celeste said he planned to leave me after the anniversary because he quote, didn't want the optics of ending the marriage before 7 years. That one landed. I felt it physically, like cold water poured down my spine. Optics, I repeated. Grant closed his eyes. Celeste realized she had said too much and looked at her husband. Adrian's face had gone entirely still. I removed the bracelet from my wrist. Slowly. Not dramatically. I unclasped it under the table, then placed it beside the reservation confirmation. 7 silver knots in a small curve of candlelight. Grant looked at it as if I had set down something alive. "Brooke," he said, "I said you gave me this morning." I meant it. "No," I said. "You commemorated what you were already planning to discard." He flinched. Celeste wiped her face. "Brooke, I'm sorry." I looked at her. "Are you sorry because you were wrong, or because Adrian is here?" Her mouth opened, closed. That was answer enough. Adrian stood. Celeste looked up quickly. "Where are you going?" "To call my attorney." Her face crumpled. "Adrian, please." He looked down at her. "You should call yours." Then he turned to me. "I'm sorry, Brooke." I nodded. "I'm sorry, too." He put on his coat and walked out through the dining room. No slammed door. No raised voice. Just a man leaving a table where the truth had become too complete to sit beside. Celeste grabbed her clutch and followed him after 3 seconds, but not before looking at Grant one last time. It was not romantic. It was furious. He had failed to protect the fantasy from consequences. Then she was gone. Grant and I sat alone at our anniversary table. The champagne had gone flat. The candle had burned low. Rain still moved down the glass. He whispered, "I made a mistake." I looked at him. "No, you made a system." His face tightened. "That's not fair." I almost laughed then, not because anything was funny, because fairness had finally become important to him once he needed it. I gathered the documents and placed them back in the envelope. He said, "Can we go home and talk?" "No." "Brooke, I'm going home. You are not coming with me tonight." His eyes widened. "It's my house, too." "Yes, and my attorney has already advised me not to prevent access, but I am asking you to stay elsewhere tonight. If you refuse, I'll leave and document it." He stared at me. "You have an attorney?" "Yes." The word landed harder than tears would have. "When?" "Monday." He sat back. "You planned this." "I prepared for it." "That's the same thing." "No," I said. "Planning is what you did when you reserved a table for 4. Preparing is what I did when I stopped believing your explanations." He looked toward the entrance where Celeste had gone. "I didn't know what I wanted." I stood, picking up my clutch. "That may be true, but you knew what you were hiding." I paid for my own untouched dinner at the hostess stand because I did not want any part of that evening mistaken for a gift. The manager, a woman around 50 with kind eyes and a careful voice, said, "Mrs. Whitman, Mr. Whitman's card is on file." "I know," I said. "Please run mine for half the deposit and my portion of the champagne." She did not ask questions. She printed the receipt. I kept it. Outside, the rain had slowed to mist. The air smelled like wet stone and jasmine. I stood under the awning and ordered a car. Grant came out 2 minutes later. "Brooke, please." I looked straight ahead. He stood beside me, close but not touching. "I love you," he said. The car turned onto the street. I said, "You loved being forgiven before you confessed." He had no answer. The car arrived. I got in. When the driver asked if I was all right, I said yes. because the answer was complicated, and strangers deserve simplicity. At home, I walked upstairs to the bedroom and packed a bag for Grant. 2 suits, 3 shirts, underwear, toiletries, the navy sweater his mother gave him. I set the bag by the front door, then I photographed it with a timestamp. He arrived at 10:20. He saw the bag. "You're serious?" "Yes." "Where am I supposed to go?" "That is the first problem tonight that is entirely yours." He stared at me for a long time. Then his face changed from pleading to anger. "You humiliated me in public." I stood near the staircase, one hand on the banister. "You invited your ex to our anniversary dinner. She came by." "Grant." He looked away. I said, "Do not insult both of us by continuing." He picked up the bag. "This isn't over." "No," I said, "but the part where you decide what I'm allowed to know is." He left. The door closed quietly. I locked it. Then I walked into the kitchen, sat on the floor beside the island, and cried for 9 minutes. I know, because I watched the clock on the oven. I cried without sound at first, then with one hand over my mouth, because the body sometimes releases humiliation before grief. When I was done, I washed my face, removed my makeup, and placed the anniversary bracelet in the navy envelope with the documents, not because it was evidence, because it was part of the lie. The aftermath came in waves. The first wave was Grant's remorse, which arrived before sunrise. At 5:42 in the morning, he texted, "I barely slept. Please talk to me." At 6:10, "I made the worst mistake of my life." At 6:31, "It was never about hurting you." At 7:15, Celeste manipulated the situation too. There it was, already shifting weight. I did not respond. At 8, I emailed Elaine Porter. Subject line, proceed. By 9:20, I had an appointment for Monday. The second wave was Celeste. She called twice. I did not answer. Then she texted, "I know you hate me, but you need to understand Grant lied to me too." I stared at the message while standing in the grocery store cereal aisle, because ordinary life is rude enough to continue during collapse. I replied, "Adrian is the person who needs your explanations. Do not contact me again unless through counsel." She wrote, "You're colder than I thought." I almost smiled. There it was again, cold. The word people use when a woman refuses to warm the room where they burned her. I screenshotted it and blocked her number. The third wave was Margaret, Grant's mother. She called Sunday afternoon. I let it go to voicemail. "Brooke, sweetheart, Grant told me you two had a terrible misunderstanding at dinner. I know emotions are high, but marriage is long, and you must be careful not to let one evening define 7 years. One evening." I saved the voicemail. Then she texted, "Please do not involve lawyers before we all sit down as family." I replied, "Lawyers are involved because family was not enough to keep honesty in the room." She did not answer. On Monday, I sat in Elaine Porter's office with the navy envelope on my lap. The city outside was bright after rain. Elaine reviewed the new notes, the restaurant receipt, the texts, and my summary of the conversation. "You handled yourself well," she said. "I don't feel like I did." "That's not the same thing." She explained my options: separation agreement, fault-based filing, financial disclosures, temporary arrangements for the townhouse, preservation of records, communication boundaries. "Do not negotiate with him alone," she said. "He is already reframing." I thought of one evening, yes. Before I left, she asked, "Do you want the bracelet back?" It was on the desk between us, sealed in a small plastic sleeve, because I had become the kind of woman who put emotions in evidence bags. "No," I said. "But I don't want him to decide what it means." Elaine nodded. "Then keep it until you do." Grant tried everything that month. Flowers arrived at my office. I sent them back. A handwritten letter came to the house. I read it once. It contained the words, confused, lonely, disconnected, regret, and mistake. It did not contain the words 11 months, hotel, anniversary, or Celeste's husband. I placed it in the folder. He left a voicemail crying. I saved it. He sent a list of marriage counselors. I forwarded it to Elaine. He texted a photo of our wedding day. I did not respond. He asked to meet at the pier where he proposed. I replied through the attorney that all logistical communication should remain in writing. That made him angry. People who rely on emotional access hate written boundaries. Adrian contacted me once, 2 weeks after the dinner. He emailed, not texted. Brooke, I wanted you to know I filed. Thank you for giving me facts rather than rumors. I am sorry for the pain attached to them. I hope your next chapter is quieter, I replied. Thank you. I wish the same for you. That was all. I never saw him again. But I thought of him sometimes. Not romantically, not dramatically. Just with the respect one has for another person who sat at the same table and chose not to become cruel in order to be believed. By July, Grant had moved into a furnished rental near his office. He told mutual friends it was a trial separation. I told no one anything unless they asked directly, and then I said, Grant had a relationship with Celeste, and I am working with an attorney. Calm statements make people uncomfortable because they leave no room for gossip disguised as concern. Some friends disappeared. That was clarifying. Some arrived with soup, wine, legal pad recommendations, and silence. That was healing. Mara came over one Friday evening with Thai food and sat on my porch while cicadas screamed in the trees. Do you miss him? She asked. Yes, I said. She nodded. I miss who I was when I trusted him, I added. That makes sense. I don't know if I miss who he actually is. Mara opened a container of noodles. That also makes sense. In August, the separation agreement negotiations began. Grant wanted to keep the townhouse. I wanted it sold, not because I hated the house. I loved the screened porch, the kitchen light, the jasmine along the fence. But I knew if he stayed there, he would turn the house into evidence of continuity. If I stayed there, I would spend years hearing his key in every sound. The house needed to become neutral. The financial disclosures revealed the separate credit card, of course. Charges stretching back 13 months. Restaurants, hotels, gifts. A bracelet from a boutique jeweler I had never received. That one hurt in a new way. I asked Elaine to find out what it was. She did. A necklace purchased 2 days before Celeste's birthday. $1, $480. When Elaine told me, I looked down at my hands. The anniversary bracelet link cost $120, I said. Elaine said nothing. That was professional of her. In September, Grant asked for one in-person meeting with attorneys present. I agreed. We met in a mediation room with beige walls, a round table, and a pitcher of water sweating onto a court coaster. Grant looked tired. His hair was longer. He wore no tie. His attorney, a man named Russell, arranged his papers into a neat stack. Elaine sat beside me. Grant looked at me like he expected my face to do something familiar. It did not. He spoke first. I want to apologize in person. Elaine said, You may. Grant swallowed. Brooke, I betrayed you. I lied. I let Celeste into our marriage, and I invited her to that dinner because some part of me wanted both worlds to exist without consequences. That was cruel. The room stayed still. It was the first apology that named anything. I looked at him. Why did you call it a misunderstanding to your mother? His face flushed. I panicked. Why did you say Celeste manipulated the situation? He looked down. Because it was easier than saying I chose it. Elaine made a note. Grant's voice broke slightly. I'm sorry. I believed he was sorry. I also understood that sorrow is not repair by itself. I said, Thank you for saying it clearly. He looked up, hopeful. I continued, It does not change my decision. His face collapsed quietly. I love you, he said. I know, I replied. But you loved me with exits. No one spoke for several seconds. Russell looked at his papers. Elaine watched me carefully. Grant whispered, Is there no way back? I thought of the anniversary table, the fourth place setting, the hand on Celeste's wrist. Stay. I thought of months of being told I was tense, insecure, cold, overthinking. I thought of the bracelet with 7 knots, Each year marked while another woman received a necklace from a secret card. "No," I said. He closed his eyes. The divorce, finalized in January. The townhouse sold in February to a young couple expecting their first child. The wife loved the screened porch. The husband asked about the jasmine. I handed over the keys at closing without crying, which surprised me. Grief had moved to other rooms by then. I rented a small carriage house behind an old property near Hampton Park. It had one bedroom, high ceilings, a narrow kitchen, and a tiny courtyard where I planted rosemary, basil, and one gardenia bush, because I wanted the smell of that restaurant transformed into something living in mine. The first night there, I unpacked only what I needed: sheets, kettle, lamp, books, one framed photograph of my parents, and the navy envelope. I opened it at midnight. Inside were documents, receipts, screenshots, notes, and the silver anniversary bracelet. I laid the bracelet on the kitchen table. 7 knots in a row. For months, I had seen it only as evidence of betrayal. But sitting alone in the quiet, I realized it was also evidence that I had tried. 7 years do not become meaningless because someone else mishandled them. Love given honestly is not foolish just because it was not returned honestly. The bracelet was not the lie. Grant was. That distinction gave me back part of myself. In March, I took the bracelet to the jeweler, who had added each knot. The owner, Mr. Hahn, recognized me. "Another link?" he asked gently, then saw my face. "No," I said, "I need it altered." He waited. "I want the knots separated." He examined the bracelet. "I can make them into individual charms." "Yes." "What will you do with them?" "I don't know yet." He nodded like that was a complete answer. 2 weeks later, I picked up 7 tiny silver knot charms in a small velvet pouch. I kept one. I gave one to Mara for showing up. I sent one to my mother because she had spent nights on the phone letting me be repetitive without calling it weakness. I placed one in a drawer. I donated one anonymously to the charity auction where I first met Grant, attached to a note that said, "For anyone rebuilding." I buried one in the soil beneath the gardenia bush. The last one I mailed to Grant with no letter, not as forgiveness, as an ending. In April, Celeste sent an email from a new address. I almost deleted it unread, but the subject line said, "Apology. No response expected." I opened it. She wrote that Adrian had filed and that their divorce was underway. She wrote that she had told herself Grant understood her better, that their history made their behavior special, that I was too controlled to be hurt the way she would have been hurt. She wrote, "I made you into a category so I did not have to see you as a person." That sentence was honest enough to matter. She apologized without asking for anything. I did not respond. Some apologies are best left untouched, not because they are worthless, but because accepting them out loud can become another form of labor. The public closure came unexpectedly in May at the annual Literacy Gala. I almost did not attend. The event was held in the same hotel lobby where I had met Grant 9 years earlier, under the same kind of warm lights, near the same corner where rain had leaked through an old window. I had moved into a new role by then, executive director of the nonprofit. The board wanted me to speak. I wore a deep blue dress and the single silver knot charm on a thin chain at my neck. Not the bracelet, just one knot, chosen and redefined. The room was full of donors, teachers, volunteers, local business owners, and people who knew pieces of what had happened. Grant was there because his firm had sponsored a table before our divorce. I saw him near the back, speaking with a client. He looked older. Not ruined, just changed. Celeste was not there. Adrian was not there. At 8:15, I stepped onto the small stage to thank the donors. The microphone felt cool in my hand. I spoke about children receiving books, about literacy tutors, about community partnerships, about the quiet work of giving people language for their own lives. Then, near the end, I said something I had not planned. Over the past year, I have learned that stories matter not only because of what they tell us, but because of what they help us stop accepting. A clear story can return a person to herself. That is what we try to give every child we serve: the ability to read the world accurately and trust what they know. The room applauded. I looked out and saw Grant watching me, For once, I did not wonder what he thought. After the gala, he approached me near the registration table. People moved around us, collecting coats and gift bags. The air smelled like roses and coffee. A volunteer counted donation cards behind me. Grant said, "You were good up there." "Thank you." He looked at the charm at my neck. "You changed the bracelet." "I did." He nodded, swallowing. I received the knot. "I know." I didn't know what to say. "That's why I didn't ask you to say anything." He looked down. "I'm glad you kept one." I touched the charm lightly. I kept what was mine. His eyes met mine. "I'm sorry, Brooke." This time, the apology did not pull at me. It passed through the air, real but no longer controlling the weather. "I know," I said. Then I turned back to the volunteers and helped stack donation cards. That was the moment I understood I was free. Not when Adrian walked into the restaurant. Not when Celeste admitted August. Not when the divorce finalized. Those were doors. Freedom was standing in the room where my story with Grant began, and realizing I no longer needed him to validate the ending. People think revenge is inviting the other husband to dinner. It is not. That was only the witness. Revenge is sitting at a table set for your humiliation and refusing to perform surprise. Revenge is bringing documents instead of accusations. Revenge is letting the person who was also being lied to hear the truth from the same room. Revenge is removing the bracelet without throwing it, keeping the knots without keeping the marriage, and understanding that proof is not bitterness. Proof is the bridge back to your own mind. For months, Grant and Celeste had counted on my politeness. They counted on my fear of looking jealous. They counted on me accepting the word friendship, because challenging it would make me seem small. They counted on the old rule that wives should not make scenes, especially in beautiful restaurants, especially on anniversaries, especially when the other woman smiles and says, "I hope this isn't awkward." But awkward was not the problem, dishonesty was, and once the truth sat down at the table, no one could pretend the fourth chair was a restaurant mistake. My life now is quieter. Not smaller. Quieter. The carriage house gets morning light through the kitchen window. The gardenia bloomed in June, almost exactly a year after that dinner. The first flower opened on a humid Tuesday, white and fragrant, and I stood in the courtyard with coffee in my hand, laughing softly because life has a strange sense of timing. I still go to Marlowe sometimes. Not often. But I went once with Mara, 6 months after the divorce. We sat at the bar, ordered scallops, and tipped the pianist. I did not reclaim the exact table, because I did not need to. Not every place that hurt you needs a ceremony. Sometimes you simply return, eat dinner, and leave with your peace intact. I do not know what happened to Grant and Celeste beyond what people inevitably mention. They did not stay together. That did not surprise me. Affairs built on fantasy rarely survive exposure to ordinary light. I heard Adrian move to Greenville. I hope his next chapter is quieter, like he wished mine would be. As for me, I keep the single knot charm on my desk most days, beside a stack of thank you notes from children in the reading program. Sometimes I wear it, sometimes I do not. It no longer represents 7 years of marriage, it represents one lesson. A knot can be a bond, or it can be something you untie. So tell me, if your husband invited his ex to your anniversary dinner and called it innocent, would you argue with him there, or would you invite the one person who could make the truth impossible to deny? Thank you for staying with me through this one. Stories like Brooke's are not really about an ex, a restaurant, or a ruined anniversary. They are about the moment a woman stops accepting confusion as the price of keeping a marriage peaceful. If you have ever been called insecure for noticing the truth, subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. There are more quiet women, more hidden receipts, more tables set for the wrong people, and more truths waiting for the right guest to walk through the door.